It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. A plane is engulfed by flames as it crashes into another aircraft at an airport in Japan. 379 passengers and crew make a remarkable escape. Also tonight, Hamas says a top official has been killed in an explosion in Beirut, blaming the attack on Israel. Hezbollah warns it will not go unpunished. Another storm brings down trees and cancels trains in the UK as scientists say it's getting warmer and wetter here. More aftershocks as the number of people dead from the Japan earthquakes rises and aid struggles to get to the worst-hit areas.
Japan is used to earthquakes and its infrastructure, its buildings are usually pretty good at withstanding them. But have a look at this, it shows you just how strong this quake was. Whole houses levelled, this road has just completely collapsed.
A woman who ran over her fiancé after an argument is found guilty of murder. Plus.
And he finishes it on double 10.
Luke Littler, the 16-year-old from Warrington, goes through to the final of the World Darts Championship. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello, good evening. 379 people made a miraculous escape today when two planes collided at an airport in Tokyo. The Japan Airlines jet crashed with a coastguard aircraft. 5 of the 6 people on board the smaller plane have died. They were responding to the earthquakes which hit Japan on New Year's Day. Well, the Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, paid tribute to the people on the plane. Well, the Japan Airlines flight JAL 516 flew from New Chitose Airport on the northern island of Hokkaido to Haneda Airport on the outskirts of Tokyo. A Coast Guard plane, flight MA722, carrying aid for earthquake victims, was due to leave Haneda Airport for Niigata Airport. Officials say the two aircraft collided on runway C at Haneda Airport. In a moment, we'll take a forensic look at what happened. But now, Sky's international correspondent Alex Rossi has tonight's first report.
This footage shows the moment the passenger plane collided with the Coast Guard aircraft. Japan Airlines flight 516, a streak of flames as it skids along the runway. These pictures taken by a passenger show what was happening inside. The orange glow of fire can be seen through the window and emergency alarms sound throughout the cabin. Moments later, and those on board are leaving their seats, smoke enveloping them. Live images from Haneda Airport then showed firefighters trying to contain the inferno. An evacuation slide is visible as the blaze quickly spreads through the fuselage. The explosive power of the fire and the intensity of the heat soon consumes the airliner. At this press conference, Japan's Prime Minister said it would take time to understand what caused the crash.
I would like to express my gratitude to the JAL staff, airport staff and passengers for their calm responses. The people that have passed away had carried out their jobs with a strong sense of duty and responsibility for the earthquake-stricken areas and victims. This is a very unfortunate incident.
But it's not surprising that what happened here is being seen by aviation experts as nothing short of miraculous. Somehow, all 367 passengers and 12 crew managed to evacuate the plane and reach safety. Coast Guard officials have now confirmed one of their crew members escaped from their aircraft, but the other 5 did not survive. The plane had been loaded with aid to help victims of the earthquake, which devastated large areas of the country's west coast.
Today we actually saw a miracle, let us not forget that. But we also saw a disaster in that the Coast Guard crew, all but one of them, are no longer with us.
This is one of the busiest times of year at one of the world's busiest airports. The JAL flight had flown out of Shin-Chitose Airport in northern Japan before the disaster happened. More than 70 fire engines were scrambled into action, and clearly the speed of all involved in the rescue helped avert a major catastrophe. Investigators are now trying to establish why this happened and how two planes were on the same runway at the same time. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Well, the Japanese government says an investigation has begun into how the collision could have occurred, with the root cause of the accident and why the Coast Guard plane was on the runway not yet known. Sky's Emma Birchley has been looking in detail at what we know.
It was a daily short-hop domestic flight that ended in a dramatic rescue and the deaths of 5 people who were on a mission to deliver aid after the recent earthquake. On board the Japan Airlines Airbus 350, a twin-engine, twin-aisle aircraft, were 379 passengers and crew. It had set off from Shinchitoshi Airport in the city of Sapporo at 4:22 p.m. local time on a flight that would take 1 hour and 25 minutes. Here's the route Flight 516 was taking, according to flight radar. You can see other aircraft on the same path into Tokyo's Haneda Airport. By 5:45 p.m, the plane had turned, ready for its final approach over Tokyo Bay. The airliner touches down on runway C at 5:47. It's at this point it's in collision with the Japan Coast Guard plane. The Bombardier Dash 8, one like this, had 6 crew on board and was preparing to take off to the port city of Niigata. Only the pilot would survive. The plane was not equipped with a modern ADS-B transponder used to transmit information about an aircraft's position.
It looks as though they were asked to stop short of the runway at a holding point, and that did not happen for some reason. The chances are that it may have happened very quickly, the whole incident, and the controller didn't spot that the aircraft was on the runway. This could be because it was at night, so it's harder to see visually.
Video posted on X shows those on board using 3 emergency exits with inflatable chutes, 2 at the front and 1 at the back. This image of passengers running to safety was posted at 6:29 p.m, within 45 minutes of the plane touching down. Despite the tannoy system not working, all 379 passengers and crew got out alive. Statistics suggest the biggest risk is when a plane is landing. There were 720 airliner accidents between 2017 and 2022. This is a breakdown of them, from taxiing before takeoff through the whole course of a flight. More than a third of those happened as the aircraft was coming into land, 250 incidents. Investigators are already trying to work out exactly how this could have happened, while aviation experts heap praise on the pilot and crew for getting everyone off safely.
The Lebanese group Hezbollah says an attack in Beirut in which a senior Hamas official was killed will not go unpunished. Hamas has said the cowardly assassination of its deputy leader was carried out by Israel, but Israeli officials have declined to comment so far. Sky's Nicole Johnston reports now from Jerusalem.
An attack at the heart of the leadership of Hamas. A senior member killed in a strike in southern Beirut, in Dahia. Salah al-Aruri was a founding member of the Al-Qassam Brigades, the military wing of Hamas, and deputy leader of the political wing of the group. Hamas called the attack a cowardly assassination. In a statement released by Hezbollah, it says its hand is on the trigger, and this is a memorable day for what follows. Iran said the strike violates Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel has not confirmed it's behind it, and it's unlikely to.
The IDF is in a very high state of readiness in all arenas, in defence and offence. We are highly prepared for any scenario. The most important thing to say tonight is that we are focused and remain focused on fighting Hamas.
The strike hit an area home to Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant group backed by Iran. The attack is a major blow to Hamas, a sign that Israel will go after its leaders outside of Gaza. For Hezbollah, a message that Israel will strike deep into the group's own backyard. And in Arab capitals, there'll be fear that war in Gaza could ignite the whole region. Al-Aruri was originally from the occupied West Bank. In Ramallah, hundreds protested. With the focus on Beirut, Israel's war in Gaza grinds on. Hamas-run health ministry says more than 22,000 people have been killed. There's heavy fighting in Khan Yunis. The city's Nasser hospital is open, but overwhelmed, and its doctors exhausted.
It's hard. Operation rooms and hospital wards are full. A lot of hard and painful memories I will never forget. Patients died because of a lack of operation rooms, medical equipment and medicine.
The Gaza war has come to the suburbs of Beirut. The question now is, how will Hezbollah respond? And does Israel really want a war on two fronts? Nicole Johnston, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Another storm has hit the south of England and Wales today, bringing high winds and rain. An amber weather warning was in place until a short time ago with some localised flooding. It comes as a new study confirmed that 2023 was the second hottest year on record, with winters getting wetter and warmer. Sky Science and Technology editor Tom Clark reports.
The first named storm of the year, Henk, brought gusts of up to 100 miles an hour. And the problems that brings: flying scaffolding, cancelled trains, falling trees. Henk also dumped yet more rain across a country still soaked from last year's storms. Against this backdrop, it might seem hard to believe, but the Met Office has now confirmed 2023 was the UK's second warmest year on record.
This is not just about individual days that are very, very hot. It's about the number of days in the year that are much warmer than average. And we've seen far more days warmer than average through the year.
When it comes to weather, that warmth is energy. Energy that helped Storm Gerrit make a tornado over Manchester last week, that gave October's Storm Babette a destructive boost, and helped propel Kieran across the Atlantic onto our shores. And when it's not stormy, warmth intensifies heat waves. June 2023, a distant memory now, was the hottest on record and a full degree warmer than the previous June record. All of us experienced a year that was at least half a degree warmer than the 30-year average. And while this was the second warmest year for the UK as a whole, 2023 was the hottest ever recorded in Wales and Northern Ireland. Between the ups and downs in the weather, the warming trend is unequivocal, as is the cause. Carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere are continuing to increase, and now they're the highest they've been for at least 2 million years. Warming and the impact it has on our weather isn't really up for discussion. The debate to be had is what we choose to do about it.
It is very important that we do not get distracted by discussions about is it happening or isn't it not, or is it human caused or is it not. We have to get on and start tackling climate change with far greater urgency and scale.
If anything, the UK had it easy in 2023. Last year, it saw concurrent heat waves on 5 continents and is expected to be the warmest on record globally. A title that's forecast to be short-lived. A developing El Niño in the Pacific means 2024 is expected to be warmer still. How that affects the UK is uncertain, but could mean more of the weather extremes we're seeing right now. Tom Clark, Sky News.
Well, let's go back to Japan now. And as we heard, one of the planes involved in that collision was helping with the earthquake relief effort. At least 55 people have died after a number of major earthquakes hit parts of Japan, and the area was shaken by another magnitude 5 tremor earlier today. Well, the series of earthquakes struck the Ishikawa and Toyama prefectures on the west coast of Japan's main island. Thousands of soldiers, firefighters and police officers have been sent to the remote Noto Peninsula, the epicentre of the initial 7.6 magnitude earthquake. Well, rescue efforts have been hindered by a wave of aftershocks. The northern cities of Suzu and Wajima are among the worst hit areas, with damaged roads restricting access. One of the region's airports has also been forced to close because of cracks on its runway. With fears of a tsunami downgraded, officials are now looking at providing support via sea routes. Fushiki is the closest major port on the coast of the Sea of Japan. Sky's Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith is travelling to the Noto epicentre and sent this report.
This place is now hard to reach any other way than by air. And it is by air that the worst of what's happened here is revealed. This is the northern end of Ishikawa Prefecture, now smouldering, smashed, people's lives uprooted and scattered. This place has experienced over 100 quakes in just over a day, the largest measuring 7.6. You can hear the sheer terror that gripped people as their world shook beneath them. It hit a remote part of this country. The journey to get there is long. But it takes us along a coastline, the whole of which was affected. Tsunami warnings here sent residents fleeing. Most have not yet returned. Your house here? Mitsugu Terasta is an exception. He's 90. This is the first time he's had to evacuate. This was the biggest alert in my lifetime, he says, so I thought maybe it's really coming. Even by night, the damage is dramatic. In the city of Kanazawa, whole houses toppled, totaling the cars that once stood beside them. And it is here we meet Ochiro Hotta, a neighbour come to gaze at the damage and reflect on his own lucky escape.
I couldn't stand up inside my home. I ducked under the table, then sat and waited. I was very, very scared. I've never felt that way. I thought I would die. I thought it's the end.
Japan is used to earthquakes, and its infrastructure, its buildings are usually pretty good at withstanding them. But have a look at this. It shows you just how strong this quake was. Whole houses levelled. This road has just completely collapsed. And here, we're still around 150 kilometres away from where the epicentre was. The priority now is reaching those who are stranded. Hard when major link roads are damaged and closed. And a huge challenge for those trying to help. Yoshi's van is filled with water, food and warm clothes. He's worried about the cold and a community hard hit by quakes in the past.
Why in this area? I can't. Yesterday they said.
The local people said, why us? Why us again?
Yes.
Oh, so these people have suffered a lot already?
Yes.
Japan's infrastructure and warning systems are world-class. It's why death tolls here often stay low. But this level of damage is still a remarkable thing. The pain here is not yet over. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News in Ishikawa Prefecture, Western Japan.
Police have released CCTV footage after a Manchester University student was found guilty of murdering her fiancé by deliberately running him over with her car. Prosecutors said 23-year-old Alice Wood used her Ford Fiesta as a weapon against Ryan Watson outside their home in Cheshire. Sky's North of England correspondent Greg Milam reports.
It had started as a night out at a party, Alice Wood and her fiancé Ryan Watson seemingly having a good time. When they left the party, she drove them home despite being over the limit. An argument began that continued at their house. On the CCTV, the red arrow highlights Wood first reverse her car towards Ryan. Then as he walks away, she swerves off the road towards him, throwing him up onto the car bonnet. She then hit him a second time. Ryan Watson was dragged underneath that car for more than 150 metres. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Alice Wood told the jury it was a tragic accident. Police say she lost her temper and used the car as a weapon, knocking on the door of this neighbour after it happened.
They had an argument, and she drove over him.
Now listen to me, OK? I'm going to arrest you on suspicion of murder, OK?
Now convicted, the 23-year-old faces life in prison. Ryan's family say no sentence can ever be long enough.
The one person Ryan trusts the most was the person who took his life in such a violent way. I am living in a nightmare knowing that my son's last moments were so brutal.
Ryan had his whole life ahead of him. He was 24 years old, he'd started a new job. There are no words, it's just a tragic set of circumstances.
Alice Wood will be sentenced later this month. In the words of the judge, a woman whose jealousy that night was ammunition enough to brutally kill her partner. Greg Milam, Sky News.
A man who's had 9 operations cancelled as a result of the NHS strikes has told Sky News he feels forgotten. He is one of thousands of people in the UK who've had their procedures postponed, with 1.2 million appointments cancelled since the start of the industrial action. And tomorrow, doctors will start the longest walkout in the history of the NHS. Sky's health correspondent Ashish Joshi reports.
Some days I actually feel that I would be better off dead. That's one thing that really gets me, is going into hospital. I feel that, what's the point? I generally do feel forgotten.
Andy is in constant pain, blind in his left eye and losing vision in his right. 9 operations for his sight and other health issues have been cancelled. One due on Wednesday might have changed his life.
It broke my heart. It broke my Christmas spirit. I didn't bother with Christmas. I didn't want to. I didn't put no Christmas decorations up. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't even cook myself a Christmas dinner. I had a microwave meal because it's heartbreaking.
This week, junior doctors will take the longest continuous strike action in NHS history. The BMA union says the government's offer of an extra 3% pay rise for junior doctors on top of 8.8% already given would amount to a pay cut for many of its members after years of below-inflation pay rises.
I'm hopeful. The government they've told us they've got a credible offer up their sleeve that they are willing to give to us. So we will wait and see what that offer is. I just wish they would give it to us now rather than after the strikes, and a whole lot of disruption could be avoided.
The government says it is willing to hold more talks if the strikes are stopped.
More than 1.2 million appointments and procedures have had to be cancelled since the industrial action began over a year ago. Over Christmas, more than 86,000 appointments were cancelled. But it's the next 6 days which brings the most dread for NHS managers, staff and patients, because this is traditionally the busiest time of year for the health service.
Hospitals are already battling against rising rates of flu, COVID and other winter infections.
It won't just be challenging, it will actually be very difficult to cover that level of service, which means that there's going to be significant disruption. And really, they're going to be on a bit of a nice edge, because it will just take 1 or 2 consultants recovering to be off sick for the whole thing to become very difficult indeed.
Andy is anxious and desperate. He needs these strikes to end.
I want all my operations. And I want somebody to actually care about me.
There are tens of thousands of patients like Andy whose lives have been put on hold. And unless there's a breakthrough soon, they will have to go on waiting. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
The former US President Donald Trump has appealed against a ruling which bars him from the ballot in the state of Maine at the next election because of his role in the attack on the US Capitol in 2021. Well, the case will now go to the state's Superior Court. Mr. Trump is also expected to ask the US Supreme Court to rule on his eligibility to run for the presidency in the state of Colorado, which has also barred him. Camilla Batman-Galich, who founded the high-profile kids company charity and was a well-known campaigner for disadvantaged young people, has died at the age of 61. Born in Iran, she rose to prominence in the UK in the 1990s. Well, the charity collapsed in 2015 amid allegations of financial mismanagement and sexual abuse. Police later found no evidence of wrongdoing. A 16-year-old boy arrested on suspicion of murdering teenager Harry Pittman on New Year's Eve has been released on bail. Harry was attacked as he waited to watch the fireworks in Primrose Hill, North London. The teenager has been remembered as a bright and promising young soul by his former head teacher. A 16-year-old from Warrington is now preparing for a World Darts Championship final. Luke Littler's success has captured the nation after another thrilling match in the semi-final at Alexandra Palace. Sky's Sajid Chowdhury was there.
This is a big to-do. This is a big deal. The treble 20 here will leave a fitting finish on double 10. and he finishes it on double 10.
He dreamt about this, but never doubted it. This was the moment Luke, the Nuke Littler, made history. The youngest player to make it to the final at the World Darts Championship.
It's crazy to even think I'm in my World Championship final on my debut. I was happy winning one game, but I could nearly go all the way.
The teenage sensation has got the world of darts talking with his incredible run in this tournament. But in his hometown of St Helens, they've been talking about him for a very long time.
You could definitely see what everyone's saying about a natural talent. He had it from the start. His board management was there. He knew what everything was going for. Yeah, he's been incredible from the start, yeah.
At the club where he perfected his throw, Luke Littler darts have sold out. His former coach isn't surprised.
He was averaging stupid averages that you should be like 16 to 20 years old, but he was doing it at 10, so he was special then.
And here is Littler as a little one. It is this relaxed approach to the game his former coach says is the Nuke's weapon. St Helens youth are feeling the shockwaves.
I think he's a real inspiration. It's mesmerising because it's like, I know who he is. It makes him feel proud because it's only like a small town like St Helens.
Next up, tomorrow night's showdown. Littler faces the winner of Luke Humphries versus Scott Williams, 16 years old and on the cusp of glory. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News, at the World Darts Championship in London.
Yes, people will be glued to that final, I think, won't they? Anyway, that was News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the PR consultant Alex Dean. Welcome to both of you. Happy New Year as well.
Happy New Year.
Certainly among the stories, we will be discussing this on the front of the Metro. Their headline, "We Escaped from Hell," the story of two planes which collided on a runway in Japan. Plenty more on that and the other stories of the day in just a minute. Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First of all, our top stories. More than 379 people have made a miraculous escape after 2 planes collided at an airport in Tokyo. 5 people also died on the smaller of the 2 aircraft. Hamas has said one of its senior leaders, Saleh al-Aruri, has been killed in an explosion in Beirut. And the 16-year-old Luke Littler has secured his place in the final of the Darts World Championship after beating Rob Cross 6 sets to 2 this evening. Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on tomorrow's front pages. Time to see what's making the headlines then with the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the PR consultant Alex Dean. Welcome and very happy New Year to both of you. So to the front pages, let's start, shall we, with the Metro. Their headline, "We escaped from hell," the story of passengers on a jetliner which collided with a military aircraft on a runway in Japan. The Guardian, meanwhile, leads with the assassination of Hamas's senior official, Saleh al-Aruri, in Lebanon. The Telegraph headlines the same story. The Times says millions of medical appointments have been cancelled as junior doctors begin a 6-day walkout. While the Mail investigates the pay of NHS bosses, some of whom are pocketing up to £300,000 a year, the paper says. The Eye looks at this year's mortgage prices as Halifax cuts interest rates. According to the FT, Elon Musk's Tesla is no longer the world's best-selling electric vehicle maker. It's now the Chinese firm BYD. Well, a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers for yourself while you listen to our guests. So let's head to Jenny and Alex. And not surprisingly, many of the newspapers with the picture of the day.
Incredible.
5 dead on this coastguard plane, but miraculously, as many have said, 379 people out of this Japanese airline plane.
Yeah, and it's testament to the plane, because this is the first crash, first major incident of an Airbus 350, but also the crew of the Japan Airlines, who managed to get all these passengers off the plane whilst it was engulfed with smoke and flames. Can you imagine the panic aboard that plane? And, you know, this is still a tragedy. 5 people were killed in this Coast Guard plane that was on its way to provide relief for, you know, the victims of this earthquake in Japan. This is a double tragedy for Japan. However, it could have been a tragedy of enormous proportions, and it is an incredible thing that 379 people managed to escape with their lives.
There will, of course, be questions about how it happened. Were they scrambling because they were trying to get aid to the victims of the earthquake and so forth? My gosh, Japan is going through it. But just for people who fly, one thing worth saying, and I fly a fair bit, and I've flown JAL a lot of times. If you fly in or out of Japan, it's a different experience from lots of airlines. When you have the safety briefing, people don't talk to each other. They don't have their headphones in. They don't read stuff. They actually pay attention. I think the cultural generalisations are normally a bad idea. I say here, I think Japanese people would think it rude to ignore the person giving you the briefing. Yeah. And boy, does it pay off to listen to those briefings. They actually mean something. Cabin crews the world over are very professional. It's not about the crews, it's about us as passengers. You should listen to that announcement.
And we certainly had an expert on earlier today who said he has his shoes on, his passport on his person, his car keys on his person for takeoff and landing, and listens acutely. And the other element people are saying is that when families are not sat together, they tend to, in circumstances like this, try and find their children, for example. And so we should stop having to pay for seats, because when families don't pay for seats, they don't sit together, and therefore they would scramble. And this 90-second ambition of getting off a flight like this with this imminent disaster, you know, befalling everybody on board, you know, that would delay people.
There's something about following instructions, right? And a lot of people in Western scenarios, when the people rehearse these things, try and take their luggage.
Yes, right? But also people take sleeping pills on long-haul flights. I mean, this is a short-haul flight, but it gives you all the different reasons.
You take your shoes off straight away.
You take your shoes off, you make yourself comfortable. You know, all the different reasons why, you know, you perhaps should be vigilant. But yes, of course, we don't know what happened. We don't know exactly what the cause was, but we do know that in another time, perhaps in another country, on another airline, this could have been an unimaginable tragedy, a terrible, terrible thing to befall a country already dealing with huge tragedies. So it is a miracle, as they say on the front of the Metro. Really.
Well, they call it a runway incursion, and many people hark back to the Tenerife
Yes,
disaster
in the 70s.
it was the 80s.
I think that was mid-air, though, wasn't it? So it's the
no, it was on the ground, wasn't it? In Tenerife.
It revolutionised air traffic control. I think they changed all their practices
and the training, and indeed the composite material they build these aircraft from. So, but the black box thinking in the airline industry is second to none. So lessons, no doubt, will be learned. Let's have a look at the FT's coverage as well. Once again, the 77, apologies, you were right, 77. A Japan Airlines plane bursts into flames on a runway at Tokyo's Haneda airport after colliding with a coastguard plane. Just the most extraordinary pictures as the bottom of it falls, the second half of it falls off, doesn't it? And the people escaping just from the front of the aircraft.
I mean, I think it's interesting also that the way that the FT has chosen to cover this is to say that this is a second disaster. I mean, everywhere else is saying, it's a good news story almost, but 5 people were killed. The entire airport was shut all day. This is a really sad time for the people of Japan. And it could have been so much worse, but it is a sad time.
OK. Let's move on to another story that leads a couple of the newspapers, which feels significant, does it not? Which is an incident in Beirut, not claimed by Israel, but it's taken out a very senior Hamas leader.
Yes.
And we've now heard from Hamas and from Hezbollah, Lebanese, obviously dominated, Iran-backed Hezbollah, who are taking this extremely seriously.
Yes, I mean, Israel never claims responsibility for these attacks when they are on foreign soil. You had Mark Regev, advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, not taking responsibility, but saying, whoever did it, whatever happened, Lebanon should know this is not an attack on Lebanon. This is a precision attack on... we all know who's behind it, even if they haven't laid claim to it. This is very interesting. It's significant. Israel would see this as a victory. So far, they have taken out sort of generals, not even so much generals, middle-ranking military Hamas leaders within Gaza. They have a problem when it comes to taking out political leaders. This particular person was the deputy head of the political bureau, who was one of the founders of the military wing of Hamas. He's very, very significant. Most of the political leaders of Hamas are based in Qatar, which is an ally of the US. Israel cannot strike those people. They will have seen this. 5 people were killed there, but they will have seen this as a kind of quite a huge success for them that will remind people in the region that the IDF is prepared to travel far and wide in order to fulfill Israel's stated aim of obliterating Hamas. But it does make things diplomatically more tense in the region. And, this man was a target before the 7th of October already for Israel. But the one thing that you know about Hamas is that they do not have one key leader who, if you take him out, all is lost. It is like a hydra. You cut one head off and 2 others return. So, this does not mean that the end is nigh for Hamas, but it is a significant victory for Israel. It will embolden Israel.
Yeah, and the point that Hamas are making, and indeed Hezbollah are making, is that this is an attack on Lebanon. Because in a sense, it serves their purpose to inflame, doesn't it?
The most significant thing about it, given the points Jenny accurately makes about the diffuse nature of leadership in organisations like this, isn't who it was, it's where it was. And a strike within Lebanon is a significant extension of the most proximate conflict.
But in the capital, that's the point, isn't it? It's not on the border or anything like that.
Correct. It is not new for Israel to conduct assassinations like this. After Munich, 1972, they conducted a range of attacks on those who were responsible or believed to be responsible for the killings of their athletes at the Olympics then. But in this heightened tension, when we've already seen what's happening in the Suez Canal, when we've already seen what's happening in the region and Yemen, to launch a strike like this in the capital of Lebanon is an extension and a heightening of the conflict.
One wonders how much appetite there is in Lebanon to get involved when they have witnessed what's happened to Gaza, with Israel, bruised, hurting after October the 7th.
Yes, and this attack took place in a Hezbollah stronghold, and we know that both Hamas and Hezbollah are funded by Iran. It is a question of how much further they want to take it. I doubt that Lebanon is going to sort of step up hostilities against Israel. But nonetheless, I did find it quite amusing. Amusing is the wrong word. It took some cheek for Hamas to say that this was a cowardly assassination, given what Hamas is prepared to do to Israel. How do you define cowardly here? It is a messy, dirty war, this. But nonetheless, this will be seen as a kind of a win for Benjamin Netanyahu, who's made so much about obliterating Hamas and so far has taken a lot of civilian lives and very few key figures within Hamas.
It comes at a time when Israel is talking about standing down reservists and withdrawing bulk of forces from Gaza and having more targeted strikes. Well, maybe now we're getting an idea of what they mean. They certainly don't mean kid gloves.
And obviously, they have not said that it was them that did this.
No.
If it was, it would be the first strike by Israel on Beirut, I think, since the war, Lebanon-Israel war in 2006. So,
yes. Well, they can't say they've done this. But then also, there is the whole issue of Qatar. They can't do these kinds of attacks in Qatar. This is all a big diplomatic hornet's nest.
Yeah. Should we go to the Daily Mail? We've obviously got doctor strikes starting imminently. They're talking about the money, Alex, that doctors get.
Yeah, I'm always tired of stories that say people get X much more than the Prime Minister in an environment in which, very unpopular view, we underpay our politicians and underpay our Prime Minister. But it does seem, and this is perfect timing if you're a junior doctor and you're seeking support for your position, that £300,000 a year to run an NHS trust.
But these are the bosses, though, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is a significant number. But the point is, it's the bosses who are criticising the junior doctors for going out on strike. So the timing is very specific. On the other hand, let's remind ourselves that in Scotland, the junior doctors settled at around, I think it was 18.5%. And the English offer came in at 12 plus the 4 uplift. So you're not that far, sorry, 8 plus the 4 uplifts, taking them to 12. So if we're actually going to wind up somewhere near the Scots, you are in negotiation territory, right? You're at 5 or 6 percentage point difference. Junior doctors currently, on paper at least, still holding out for 35%, and that's what's causing the current walkouts.
Yeah, it's not just about pay, though, is it? It's sort of intolerable working conditions, partly because of the backlog that they've got.
Well, as I say, the Scots have settled, so it can't be that different.
Say again?
The health systems in England and Scotland aren't that different, and the junior doctors in Scotland have settled at 18%.
OK, so the temptation would be there, you're suggesting?
Well, I mean, it's a negotiating tactic, this 35. It's like a no-deal Brexit, isn't it? It's what people throw around in order to get closer to what they want. And, you know, it is interesting that this is the Mail's take, is saying, the fat cat bosses. I mean, you would say that running an NHS trust is a pretty big deal.
Complex job.
And that, you know, you would expect it to be a competitive job with a competitive salary. There is a sense of, you know, there's going to be a 6-day walkout by these junior doctors. There have been 1.2 million procedures over the past year that have been postponed, changed because of this industrial action. You do get a sense that there is perhaps a kind of weariness, a fatigue, and we've now got to this point where we just don't really expect things to work in the NHS anymore, rather than everybody noticing, 6 days, junior doctors are going to be, we need to sympathise with them. I do think that they deserve a pay increase. I wish that the government had better negotiating relations with them. I wish that they would be more reasonable and stop asking for 35%. It's a terrible shame.
I suppose what I'm implying, that there is room for negotiation here, and if that's the case, you shouldn't withdraw your labour. Of course, it's a fundamental right to withdraw your labour, but it seems to me an extreme thing to do, especially if you're in the provision of healthcare. On your point about the 1.2 million cancelled appointments in the system, that number is likely to be a lowball estimate because people are already not scheduling things for days on which potential strikes have been announced. So the real number, the cost to the system, is going to be higher. And I thought it was very interesting. I can't remember if it was, I think it was Age UK today, said how worried they were about old people especially, just if they feel bad, thinking, I can't trouble the NHS at the moment, junior doctors are out and not calling 111, not calling the health service. Worth saying, whatever your position on these strikes, doctors have said they will in emergency go and help, they will help in major incidents, and if you don't feel well, call 111 or call 999.
Well, we know that works, or that happens, because my daughter broke her wrist and I didn't go in for 4 days because it was strike time, so there we are. So anyway, she fell again that we went, and then it really hurt. Anyway, I want to pick up on this one in the FT. Tesla losing its crown as the world's top electric car maker to China's BYD, which means build your dreams, doesn't it?
Yes, and apparently build your dreams, they're saying they're the biggest car brand you've never heard of. This is to do with their previous quarter's sales, so it's not annual sales. Build Your Dreams, Chinese company, they produce their own batteries. This is what's so interesting. So they are able to be flexible with their pricing in a way that Tesla isn't. This is, of course, the future of cars. It's not been a great year for Elon Musk. There was a story in The Guardian today that Twitter, I'm not calling it X, Twitter has lost 71% of its value since he took it over. But, you know, he's got enough money that he can handle all of this. But this is really, really interesting in terms of the future. These brands that we haven't even heard of quietly creeping ahead.
But, I mean, they've led the way in solar panels. They're leading the way in new industries, and this is something... And they've got those, you know, rare earth metals as well, which make it also critical.
And a huge and protected internal market and an authoritarian command economy, which can help you on some of these things. But I would invite people... Elon Musk is unpopular in lots of places, but I invite people to realise sometimes the lesser of two evils is still desirable. If you actually want the future of vehicles to be controlled by a Chinese manufacturer, I invite you to reflect for a moment on how much you're delighted to see Elon Musk coming second. That might not actually be the best outcome.
I'm not saying anything bad about his cars. I just do think he has totally ruined Twitter.
I thought Alex was going to say buy British eventually on that one.
Of course, of course. First option, buy British.
Exactly. Anyway, lots more still to come, including reflecting on the 16-year-old making history in the World Darts Championship. Amazing stuff. Back in a moment.
It's the global elite, isn't it? It's those in positions of power across governments, oil companies, media barons, banks, those who have persisted with the destruction of nature and with continuing with fossil fuel expansion year after year when we have known unequivocally that it was going to drive what's happening now. Disaster. We're seeing it daily on our news screens, if you look. The catastrophe is fatal, and those people in power are not being held to account.
Well, I'm a bit mystified about the idea of global elites 125,000 years ago. I think the willingness to find blame or assign blame to people who've long been in their graves is a little bit odd. I wonder how the measurements are made of temperature 125,000 years ago. How can one be sure that what is touted as the hottest period since God knows when really is that? It's very difficult to believe that the statistics adduced about global temperatures so long ago are really credible.
The point is, if I drop this glass, which I'm not going to do because I'm non-violent and I don't like breaking things, if I drop this, it will break. That's gravity, isn't it? Like, denying that putting more carbon in the atmosphere causes global heating is absolutely insane. We know that. We've known it for 150 years. It's unequivocal. We know that the people in power know full well that what they are doing will drive mass death, and yet they are still doing it.
The fact is that you're measuring apples with pears when you're comparing the sedimentary record of 125,000 years ago, which is sampled every few centuries by scientists, to what's taken every few weeks about global temperatures today. It's an entirely different procedure. I believe that industrialization in this last century has raised the temperature of the Earth. It'd be very strange if it hadn't. That's one thing. To suggest that anybody who differs from that is basically bordering on genocidal is the way we debate matters now. It's not scientific, it's to do with emotions. And that really won't suffice if we want a way forward to deal with global warming.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. With me once again, Jenny Keem and Alex Dean. Welcome back to both of you. Front page of the Eye, front page of the Telegraph as well, about mortgages. Suggestion that there is a mortgage rates war underway, Alex.
Yes, and you will find few things on which this panel firmly agrees, but as people who fixed their mortgages last year, separate mortgages, I stress, as I moved house last year, fixed my mortgage, it's a bit annoying, but it is very good for the economy. Many people have been really struggling to get onto the housing ladder. We've seen that not even the bank of mum and dad, which people have been depending on for a generation to buy their first home, can help enough people to get mortgages. And with high rates as they've been, this is really, really good news for people who want to either remortgage because they're coming to the end of their term, or get on the housing ladder for the first time.
So what my question was why, when the Bank of England governor still seems to suggest that interest rates will be high for a long time. But we did see the big inflation fall, I guess, didn't we, last month?
There has been speculation, apparently, that interest rates are going to be cut twice this year, so the front of the Eye says, and it is Halifax that cuts interest rates first, apparently, which sticks in the craw even more, because I have a mortgage with Halifax, who I fixed with in November, but only for 2 years. So hopefully it's all going to continue to go down. But, you know, there are a lot of people who will be in the same situation. You know, there are many millions of people who fix. It is the way the ridiculous mortgage system works in this country. But, yes, it is good news, although not for me.
When you're circling the activity and you think rates may come down, you can still make some profit as a provider on a lower rate. So there's that. But there's also a significant first mover advantage. The one that goes first tends to get the real lion's share of people's business. People were thinking of changing their mortgage. They see the headline, they see institution X has come down in their rates, and they get a vast majority of the people who are switching that day, week, month.
So going first
has real advantage, and that's why you get these price wars.
OK, fascinating. Let's go to The Guardian. This is the right-hand column, if you take a look. And this is Keir Starmer, Labour leader. They say cleaning up politics, but is it cleaning up people who've got government contracts, effectively?
It's cleaning up cronyism. So this is one of those, he is going to make a speech. They've seen a draft of the speech, and in this speech he's going to say that people who defraud the government will face going to jail for a decade under new plans, which I think people are going to like the sound of, especially in the light of the Michelle Mone story. Big question about
the allegations of which have been denied.
Have been denied, and we know how litigious she can be as well. The question being in these particular situations, I think at a time when the public finances are squeezed and millionaires are making a lot of money, why don't they pay it back? First of all, but also this question of setting standards, and this being Keir Starmer trying to present himself as my government will be unimpeachable, even though it was extraordinary times in the times of the pandemic. We will make people repay, and we will make people pay in terms of going to prison when they defraud the government. And I think people will like that.
So Keir Starmer's going to be clear. Keir Starmer's going to announce that he's going to have a maximum 10-year sentence for defrauding the government. That's his new policy. Do you know what the maximum sentence for fraud is already? 10 years.
Well,
it's not a new policy.
Then why not? But then why isn't it being enforced? Why isn't it being enforced? That's the whole thing.
It's not a new policy.
Well, maybe he'll enforce it. It's still, I think it's good politics. People will sign up to it.
We've lost Alex.
I've got a new policy for 10 years.
Well, it's good politics.
It's already 10 years. It's not one day more.
Oh, it's tickled him. Anyway, let's talk about Luke, shall we? Alex, are you capable of...
I'm OK.
Well, have a drink, have some water. It is
I'm all right. For this story, I'll pull myself together.
Yeah, OK. So he's 16, and hasn't he done amazingly well already?
He's 16, even though he does not look 16. What were you doing when you were 16?
I certainly wasn't in the World Cup final of darts.
He's going to school tomorrow, apparently.
He's blown it, because until today, most pubs in the land would have served him. But now he's done for another year and a bit. It is an amazing achievement, and one thing worth reflecting on is what this sport has been transformed. In my youth, this was the most dowdy sport.
There's a party down there in Ali Pali.
It's incredible.
I mean, I think our youths were basically at the same time, Alex, and I was still watching this. It's always compelling. Even though, I mean, God, it's not glamorous. He hasn't made it glamorous, but it is a compelling watch.
It's joyous,
when you've got a kind of young upstart. And also, you know, his family were releasing videos of him as a child in nappies throwing magnetic darts. Like, he's clearly a kind of wunderkind.
And he's so level-headed. You listen to any of his interviews, he's so calm with it.
You have to be calm, don't you?
I know, you have to be steady and calm, but it is amazing, actually. I hope he goes all the way. Not to wish his opponents bad luck, but I hope he goes all the way.
Yeah, all homegrown, I think, aren't they? Final. Anyway, well done. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you recover, Alex.
You're right.
Make yourself laugh, that's fine. Jenny and Alex, thank you. Here's the weather. Well, the next few days will remain unsettled with further flooding possible. The weekend looks drier, if colder. Wednesday will start dry for many, but there will be a scattering of heavy showers. More general rain and gales will affect the far northeast, with snow more likely in Shetland. Showers will develop more widely through the morning, with hail and thunder possible, but there will be sunny spells too. Northern Ireland and southern Scotland have the best chance of staying dry. Northeast Scotland will remain wet, with further sleet or snow in Shetland. Strong winds will continue there, and across the south won't be as windy as today, you'll be glad to hear, but it will be a touch colder. Further heavy showers during the afternoon, some prolonged across Scotland, snow on the hills. Thursday will bring fewer showers and more in the way of sunshine, and it might slowly get better. Here's hoping. Top stories coming up for you in Sky News at 11. We'll have all the latest on the Japan Airlines plane which burst into flames after colliding with a coastguard aircraft.